Yeah, I mean, hello everybody who is not watching us right now, probably.
Who will
Um,
be watching us
yeah,
later
who will be most
when
probably listening to us.
when we will when we will become famous, right?
Yeah,
It should
yeah,
have it should happen at some point in the future.
exactly. So, hello everybody. It's Small Data Talks, episode 1, right? Um,
It's
and
really it's so exciting to have a video stream. You
yeah,
you cannot imagine that. For me, it means a lot because I can do these things, you know.
and no one can prevent you from doing that. And some will even like listening to a podcast audio only. They will check what the hell he's doing.
My condolences to those who cannot prevent me from doing
Yeah,
that. But
exactly. Okay, so meanwhile, we are like beginner YouTubers and we are podcasters with some experience. So
beginner
we
YouTubers, professional coffee and tea drinkers. That should
that's it. That's the motto. Okay, um, and we started by with a with awesome topic of we don't not we I don't believe in capitalism. Um,
that
so we should have
that
red overlays, not black and white ones.
so I said that it could have been a great T-shirt print, and that's the reason why I'm so late today. I think it's a good excuse why you can be late. I was trying to select a better T-shirt for this video stream. Huh? How does it sound?
Okay, yeah. Uh,
You
just
missed?
before you show it,
Okay.
I was watching the. So I honestly need to admit, I rarely watch YouTube video streams. Usually, I use like I watch YouTube videos, maybe 1.5 or 2x speed. Cannot do more.
You
And
cannot do that with video streams, right?
uh, by the way, there is a bug on YouTube. If you watch a video on your mobile, maybe it's iPhone bug, iOS, whatever. Anyway, if you watch a video on some increased speed and then you switch to live stream,
Mm-hmm.
it tries to show you last X seconds on
Mm-hmm.
2x or
Oh,
whatever the
really?
speed was. Yeah. And then it kind of waits until buffer kind of, I don't know, is complete again. And then it again shows me like the short, I mean, not short. So basically it's a delayed stream with increased speed. It's really weird. So, I mean, it's just broken.
So it happens when stream has already started
Yeah.
and you joined later, not at the beginning. And
I,
everything that was streamed before, you can watch it in like two times
yeah,
speed.
yeah.
Okay.
Actually, you can, when stream goes in YouTube, you can actually go back in time.
Don't do that with us.
I'm fine. I don't know. So yeah,
T-shirt. The
wait, wait, wait.
T-shirt.
I haven't completed it. You see, so there is a guy who is one of the authors or founders of Olama,
Okay.
uh, and he has a very nice YouTube channel. Like, uh, if we do videos on YouTube,
You mean
and
better than ours?
yeah,
I cannot
yes,
believe that.
yes. So we should buy some ads from him maybe. I like the way how does videos. So it's not tutorials. So there are some tutorials, but they're real people tutorials. It's not like, hey guys, today we are installing, I'm not sure, Kubernetes in your cloud with this simple script of 1,000 lines of code. We just let it run. Okay, let me just go forward in time. It's done. Okay, let's do something else. No, the guy explains like what went wrong, why it went wrong. He also explains that some detours he had to take and how to debug the stuff. So I believe him, I would say. And I actually followed one of the tutorials. Like, okay, yeah, that makes total sense. What he says. So it's also not tutorials for lazy people. It's not like you have to do 1, 2, 3. He explains like.
I must ask. I must
So
ask.
what it has to do with the T-shirt, right?
No. Like you said that you don't believe in capitalism, but you believe some random guy on the internet.
I mean, don't believe in capitalism is just a joke. I mean, no way. um, so and for some reason I joined a live stream like on Wednesday, I guess, or no Thursday. So yesterday actually. And there was a live
So
stream, and they were discussing.
Let me show my T-shirt.
So they were discussing T-shirts.
While he's talking.
Okay, yeah, just do that. So it's difficult, man. It's difficult with video streaming. Okay. So they were discussing T-shirts, actually. That's why I'm like, okay. So two guys from IT, like doing some very fancy stuff with GPU computations and so on, discussing like T-shirts and fabric.
It's almost like us without GPU computations.
Yeah. I mean, the guy from Olama, I mean, half of his content is about actually how to use macOS hardware, MacBook, hardware. So yeah.
People really need the YouTube channel for that.
Yeah.
Now, you're different because you're making YouTube channel. You're not watching it.
Just show your T-shirt, please.
I will use this pose to show.
Okay, we even have a screen for that, right?
While he's away, I'm finally able to show you my T-shirt, guys. Here it is. This is why it was really important to select it, to choose the right one for this stream, for today's stream. And now he's back.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we are not banned for that. I don't think that YouTube algorithms are too picky about the content, but I mean that should be just fine, right? I mean it's forked, right? I mean it's the word is forked.
Do you know how to use Git?
Exactly.
Of course you don't.
I don't. We just had. Oh, don't start that, man.
I'm saying that just because I don't. So I think we are even.
I mean, I don't believe in Git, something like that. That's so nerdy, man. That's a shame, I would say. Especially given the fact that I was just discussing Git like 1 hour ago before the stream with a friend of mine. She's living in Turkey now. And usually you're discussing about some roots in Turkey or weather or life situation, capitalism, believers and so on. But now it was about Git. And she said I don't use anything but command line, hardcore. And whenever I'm trying to use some graphical clients, I don't believe it. So it feels like I'm faking the stuff. So I'm not sure that what it's shown is happening exactly. And I was actually whoa, that makes sense, because I have to admit I barely understand sometimes how exactly Git does what it does. So I'm definitely not master of Git. I know people are doing crazy. Not really. I'm fan of okay, if there are too many conflicts and there are 3 people trying to merge PRs and so on, hey guys, sometimes Git clone of fresh Git clone can resolve a lot of that. Yes, you can show your master in Git, but sometimes it's just faster. I know I'm not a real IT guy, so yeah. And I installed lazy Git just before our stream to see, because I'm a big fan of lazy Docker, because it's lazy and it's Docker. So, and it's this famous TUI, right? So it follows the same fashion. I managed to commit and push. So what else do you need, right? But I always, every time you do git pull or whatever and you have conflicts and I'm on command line alone without anyone to help me, I start crying and I switch to IntelliJ or JetBrains Git clients, actually. Because, yeah, I don't believe myself that I can resolve these conflicts nicely from terminal. But this lazy Git seems maybe to be a nice common ground in between. Yeah. So there is also TIG, right? Which is also following the same fashion, I guess. So yeah. Do you believe in Git?
Knock, knock, knock. Do you believe in Git? We can teach you how. I don't know how to use Git. I think that's a good start. Every time I see that conflict is not resolvable, I like lose my hope to
In people.
finish my working day in time.
Especially when it's Friday, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's like it's not direct, but directly connected. But it's definitely one of the reasons why we do not do deployments on Fridays.
That's a point, man. That's
Okay.
definitely a point. Why? Because today is Friday, 28th of March 2025, and we're recording this first episode, and I did like until 6 p.m. probably. Oh, yeah, me and DevOps engineer, proper one, not a fake one like me. We were doing like Friday deployment. We finished at the phrase, "Hey, let me check. Maybe it's working. Exactly, it's forked. Let me check. If it's working, I will just ping you." Because for the guy, it was like already midnight actually. I was still wondering why the hell he answers me messages like in Slack and doing something. But man, we did it. We managed. So after like 5 pull requests, after so many restarts of the pipeline, it works magically. The only thing I cannot still fight is very weird error with open telemetry. Yay. Uh, which is going under the motto, I don't believe in auto instrumentation. Manual instrumentation. Make your spans, traces, and metrics on your own.
You made a point regarding graphical interface or some additional tools to control how Git behaves. And I'm thinking, like Git is a command line utility, right? So when you work with Git, it works perfectly. When you connect something else, you don't believe that it does its job properly. What about things like, I don't know, GitHub Desktop? It's not a completely third-party tool, right?
I never heard of that, by the way. Wait.
Okay. Today I learned, right?
Mhm.
So they have their own product called GitHub Desktop,
Okay.
which has Git client built in, plus some additional commands that allow you to control your Git repository that is stored on GitHub.
But is it just a wrapper for GH utility?
No,
CLI?
it's more. I think it's more because they have their own CLI tool for Git.
Yeah.
So
Um,
maybe that's the wrapper for that, not for the default Git, right?
No,
Because
I
it's
mean GH
GH,
tool.
yes, probably
Yeah.
yes. I don't know if it's open sourced. It's probably not.
Uh,
But yeah. So I'm thinking if they know what they are doing, probably GitHub Desktop client should be like more reliable or trustable rather than something else. Or you think it's the same as with other tools for Git, like I don't know, VS Code extension or
Wait, I
whatever.
mean, I'm now totally confused because I'm not an active user. I mean, I'm an active user of GitHub, but my active usage of GitHub is like git clone. That's it. So GitHub and pull request basically communications, right? GitHub Actions, whatever. So I never used. Maybe once I used GitHub CLI, and now I thought you can only do like pull requests with that or whatever, or can you also do commits with that? So
You can, I believe, I'm sure you can do whatever you want. Like
okay,
everything that is covered by default Git command extended with GitHub specific commands. That's my understanding.
okay. I mean,
But I don't know Git. I've said that at the beginning. That was really important disclaimer.
have you ever used Mercurial?
I was young
I mean,
and
that's not an error. I mean, that's not a mistake. It's okay.
we all were, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I never used Mercurial. So for me, it was SVN and then Git. That's it.
Not in commercial products,
Mhm.
products, only just for fun. And it was really the time when it was also already defeated by Git. So it's just was kind of, I don't know. I wanted to know what it can be, like what other options. I'm sure many of people today they do not know what are the other options. Like yeah, you can store everything in plain file structure, file folder structure in your file system, but like what's about version control?
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I mean, my Git usage is pretty similar to my SVN usage. I mean, it's not so large different, so I'm not doing crazy reverts. I mean, I don't even know all these Git commands. There's so many subcommands, I mean.
Do we need to?
Exactly, and that's my point. Like, is Git already too complicated tool?
Indeed, it is like 100%. I would give you a weeping angel from the Doctor Who series.
Where did you get that one?
In London, actually,
Okay.
in Doctor Who shop.
Okay, I mean, then clear. And yeah, that's really like a dramatic stuff, man. Seriously.
The whole idea of this thing, I don't know if you haven't watched it,
No.
is that if it touches you, it can suck your lifetime powers and throw you back in time. So you cannot live your
Mm.
the years and your lifetime that you're supposed to be living because you're thrown away into the past like 100 years ago.
Oh, 100. Okay.
Yeah, so you're not dead, but it's like it's not you. It's different. Everything is different. That's the whole idea. This is why it's creepy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, maybe not creepy. It's somehow, yeah, dramatic, I would say. Can you please send me the link to our YouTube stream? Meanwhile.
Of course, I can't.
So I
will try to find.
I was brave enough to select some topics for us today. Yeah, in addition to what we just discussed, I mean, definitely the most important stuff in the world. So the one that actually I selected for you, because I don't have much of a, not saying experience, as a data scientist, I still have some experience with data. Am I data scientist? That's the question. Anyway, the post or whatever blog post is called a love letter to CSV format. And I found it like really, so why the hell one would love CSV? But then I was like, okay, actually I didn't know that there is no standard or specification. So the guy mentions RFC 4180, which I never heard before. But again, it's kind of controversial thingy, according to many. Not according only to the paper or blog post, but also according to Y Combinators, Y Combinator, Harken use, how do they say that? Opinion leaders. So the main point pro CSV is that it's very simple, very understood. So there is, let's say, less space for errors, and it's also like kinda human interpretable. So such that if data its nature is simple, then even a beginner developer or not developer actually can dig into data and do something with that, at least read it and understand it maybe. And it also allows for, so in here I have controversy, I have to admit, but there is an idea which I know worked with streaming processing, I have to admit. So the guy says that CSV is ideal almost for stream processing. So be it like a huge CSV file where you can tail, thanks to Linux, or be it a real stream where you can process line per line. So yeah, I'm actually having a question here for you as a data engineer. So what's about CSV files? I mean, to me, it sounds kind of, if you like want to break your system and data formats, you should use CSV. Because CSV cannot, at least to me, it's a very limited thing that can basically serve and work by itself. So you need CSV and something more. A lot of metadata, a lot of agreements around in order for it to be stable, I would say, data exchange format.
That's the thing. One guy that I've met last year, I think I met him last year. We like drinking a beer in a bar, and he was saying that like data engineering is a wonderful world when like you don't have to think a lot about like complicated transformations. You're just getting data from one point, like from one source, putting it into the target, and your job is done, right? And I said, you know,
Do you have open positions, man?
it's not a guy from my from my job, right? And he has never worked as data engineer. The funny plot in this story is he's an active Linux kernel committer.
Okay.
And he says he said that like data engineering world is like, you know, the field with flowers. So
I
I
mean,
said to
maybe
him,
in comparison to anything, like,
like I it triggered me so hard because
that you committed to Linux core or what?
that I thought like when will be that day when I will just take data from here, put it there, and we'll go to have my cocktail or beer on the beach. The thing is that the data structures and formats are so different. And the most important and the most hardest part on every single project that I've been participating in was to agree on these formats. And there was never such thing as an agreement. Every time we try to agree, but it always takes like tremendous efforts to agree on something. CSV is a great format. If the data producer knows what you expect to get, and you are sure what producer provides you with. But many cases and many CSV variations, as discussed under that topic on Y Combinator, making this simple job so hard. Like you have different ways to separate your values. It can be comma, it can be semicolon. You can have your values quoted. You can those without quotes. Quotes adds additional layer of complexity. Why? Because if in like ideal world, you, as that guy explained in his article or her article, you have a record, like one line in CSV file, and that's a complete record from your source. But if one of the values in that record started with double quotes, it means that it can end several lines below. So you cannot treat every line, as they said in their article, as a separate record, data record. And this complicates things a lot. Stuff about metadata. I think metadata is very important, especially because people cannot agree. They argue a lot, they cannot agree, they change the source. And when you change the source, What happens with JSON? Like in the worst scenario, you didn't get the field that you expected to see in the data file, right? There was an, I don't know, order ID, and now there is no order ID. You can easily check that. What happens if you're working with CSV? Your system will try to treat it, to cast it, and
Yeah.
interpret it as an order ID. So it gives so much headache and pain in all the body pieces that you could have ever imagined uh, working with this format. Uh, I need add some important uh, thought to this speech. So if you are in control of both source and
Hmm.
provider, that would be ideal. You know what you produce, you know what you receive from this producer. So that's an ideal way of sharing data. You can easily compress text data. You can easily uh, work with I don't know, lines as separate records if you're sure, if you ensure that your producer produced that. But if you are not in control of that, if it's a separate team, it's a separate company, separate entity, then I would prefer to work with something else.
Uh, Let me ask it like very naively. Do you ever, or have you, maybe currently, do you maybe have any projects, real ones, business ones, that actually do exchange data in CSV format?
Of course.
Not internal one, I mean customer facing ones.
Customer. Well, I work in a project that do not have, well, we do not provide IT services. So we don't have customer who use our IT
Hmm.
services, but we use a lot of third-party services on the market. And believe it or not, I think at least quarter of them providing the data in CSV format.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, when you also said that, like, if you are in control of producer and consumer, then my question would be, okay, then you are like free in your choice, kind of. If it's your code base, if it's your databases and so on. So I mean, you can go to anything. You can go to protobuf, and like if you want to be crazily fast, right? You can go to, I don't know, to multi-processing and streaming processing, all that, right?
I mean, yes, but
I mean, maybe
that,
until the thing is simple and you want to keep it simple, right? If it
or you
doesn't.
don't have much time to introduce a new way of exporting data, and your data is already being exported and it's in CSV format, but you know what CSV format
Mhm.
is that, and you're in control of that. It would be easier for you to just suck it in, put in database or S3 or wherever you want to put it, and do not lose any important information.
Hmm.
There are some cases where it would be easier to use what's already working.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying we must not use it. That's not the message. I'm like wondering. So in most of the new projects, POCs and so on, and the default choice of people, at least that I worked, is like, okay, we have JSONs. Even if it's like some kind of data science data, so like metrics and tables. So when we want to exchange that, let's say with front-end services, even in our internal POCs. So intrinsically, of course, or not intrinsically, internally we use data frames whatsoever. But then when it comes to exporting, importing, we'll say, okay, please JSON, because we want to at least have some metadata. Yeah, I mean, we have column names, maybe, maybe not. We don't know if the first row should be ignored or not. And it already gives you like some, yeah, you have to agree.
Ambiguity, yeah. Uh, I think JSON is not optimal format for data transmission, for moving data from one place to another. So at this point, I'm totally agree with that guy that CSV would be much
Mm.
preferred. preferable way of moving data. But as I said before too, without metadata, you cannot rely on this data source. So it depends. It depends.
Yeah, I've always basically. I mean, the title triggered me. I'm like, CSV. The amount of pain. I mean, from any project, I would say. So you always.
Every
I mean,
single one.
yeah, engine. Yeah, now with like copilots whatsoever, it's easier for sure. But still, like, especially when you consume data from third party that you cannot control, you don't know how to control. I mean, same with JSONs, right? So yeah, not much of a difference. And Friday deployment was actually stuck today because the secret name. So most of variables were having dots in between the parts, but secret was having underscores. And yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, the one can say like it's easy. Come on, you just have it. But when it's like layers of virtualization, like codes, Docker, EKS, config maps, and so on, like yeah, we forked it exactly. So that's why maybe 2 hours were like, and that's where GNI didn't help. And that's where I want to move us together to the next topic. Again, I
Thanks
think
God we have you.
what can I say? Yeah. And we have small data talks. So another topic is actually the hurdles of using GenAI and for the, let's say, mostly a software development job. And I truly like this post. I mean, let me try to find the link. I mean, we should put links in the description, I guess, right? To let people read, not listen to us.
We should at least share them with each other.
I mean, we share them with each other, man. So it's called The Role of Developer Skills in Agentic Coding.
He didn't lie, he shared that with me.
Yeah. So the idea of the paper is to decompose like hurdles you can have when you use GenAI stuff whatsoever into three kind of zones of what can go wrong, I would say. So the bad side effects that can appear. And I really like what he did. So he or she, I'm not sure. It's actually she, Birgitta Böckele. So she created a nice plot, I would say. I don't like visualizations in circles. I mean,
Is she German?
Probably German speaking, I would guess. Who knows? I don't know. Like, yeah, I cannot judge, but definitely.
I couldn't find anything smarter than ask this question. Sorry.
Okay. So the diagram that she presents is kind of the side effects with increasing radius. So the larger the radius of the circle, the more long-standing effects a certain issue can bring. And so she mentioned, so one can really scroll down to the very end because it's the final kind of, the final plot is given. And I really like how she decomposed hurdles into sections. So I would like to ask you, actually, first of all, like when you use, and I don't know what do you use or not, when you use all the GenAIs, ChatGPTs, Copilots, and so on. So what kind of errors, hurdles, and opposite of time savings do you have? So when it's going wrong. And before answering that, I'm actually a bit, I was misled by the title, Role of Developer Skills in Agentic Coding, because agentic is something else to me. I mean, it's really not something, it's totally different stuff. But anyway, I would shape it as, let's say, coding with a GenAI assistant, something like that. So yeah, what kind of hurdles do you have if you use that stuff?
I'm definitely use that stuff. Uh, you know what? I think everything that can help us in our work is a great tool.
But
But you can take a hammer and I don't know, smash a computer, right?
no, this is too expensive. my
Now you
company
know
wouldn't
that.
like that. Like, no. No.
Well, it doesn't have to be your computer, but
I mean, we all know from this history, right, that I almost smashed a computer. Like there is a laptop with a broken screen, it works, and there is another display which is broken completely because I dropped a mic. That's funny. I dropped a mic onto that. So
that's one of a heavy mic, I shall say.
it is heavy actually. Yeah.
So where were I? Where was I? Where was I? With this helpers. I
Yeah.
call these tools helpers, right? You can learn programming language at university, and then you can use your skill that you gained at your job, right?
Seriously, like you said that seriously, man. I don't believe that. Okay, let's presume. Okay.
Well, can you imagine that you've learned how to define a new variable in your code?
Okay.
Okay, right? You can use that knowledge at your job.
Yeah.
Fine. But also, it doesn't mean that you know how to use this syntax correctly. Like if you've learned that you can define variables with var in Swift and use let for constants, it doesn't mean you know why you should prefer one over another, in which cases, etc. I think it's absolutely the same with, I don't know, any random article on the internet. You're reading what's written there, you can copy the steps, follow the instructions, and then you're getting something that does work. Does it mean that the tool or app or whatever you've built was written in an optimized way, in a performant way? Does it mean that its code is like following recent recommendations from programming language developers? No, it doesn't, because you've just followed instructions on the internet. But if you keep learning, if you're trying to understand why in that piece of code you've used let instead of var, because you're not going to change its value, because it takes less amount of memory, because it prevents your code from being broken by unexpected behavior of your own code. Many different things can like overweight the usage of one syntax construction to construct over another. Now the same with any chatbots and language models. They are great. I think it's a beautiful source of information. That's easier helper and tool that can give you something that you don't know yet. But it doesn't mean that once it gave it to you, you automatically know it. It doesn't mean that. It gave something to you that probably even can work, but you need to understand what's written there. You need to understand why it's written in this way. Like in most cases, I'm not saying every single letter, and I believe like in 10 years time, we will stop trying to understand what's written in like under the low I would say low end functions or methods. We will start to think bigger concept. We will start to think like classes from object-oriented programming, etc. So I'm sure large language models will be able to generate new programming languages for us, and we won't know what is happening under the hood. We can cover everything with tests, and that will help, but that will be completely different from what we thought a programming language is. So today, going back to your question, today I think everyone should use them. Everyone should use them in their day-to-day work, in their like daily life. I use it not only at my work. I use it for my personal needs. I can translate something from one language to another. I can ask it to generate a picture. It can do many beautiful things. But one thing that it can never do, and I don't believe it will ever be able to do, is to provide 100% trusted information.
That's the point, actually, right? But I guess our discussion now already for someone who will ever listen to that will say, "Hey guys, like you are so old school." Like you said important thing. You said it's a nice tool to search for information. So what about wipe coding, man? Just wipes and so on. So and when it yeah, I know it's kind of sarcastic a bit, but still, if I need to generate, for example, tomorrow I want to create a fancy, shiny looking web page for my GitHub profile, which I don't have. So say I want it, and actually I should maybe create it eventually. What I did before, I was looking for tutorials and so on, like, okay, what do we have? Static content creation, static site generators and all that, right? But if I really would like to have something fancy and I want to have a proper front end, I will go with, I don't know, Gemini. I got access to it because of work. Or I go to ChatGPT and I will actually follow it because I barely understand what happens under the hood in TypeScript or JavaScript. I just want the thing to be done. But importantly, that stuff is kind of, so I'm only interested in the artifact. And this artifact probably can be easily fixed. So I don't care about, is it really purely correct? If it's static, I also presumably understand that it's hopefully secure. So security is a big issue, right? So if it's artifact is the only thing of interest for me, that's just fine. I don't give a anything about like the quality on the code. However, when it comes to the stuff that is signed after my name, say my job, my code in there, yeah, I totally agree that we should always check and so on. However, I also realize that, I mean, mostly what I do now, so skeleton is created. So I don't believe, so not believe, I still haven't seen any GenAI creating a skeleton that I would like. So the boilerplate that I create is much different from what Gemini creates.
The reason for that is because you have your own preference, you have your expectations.
Exactly, and there is a balance. So probably if I would prompt it long enough, and you can like download some llm.txt files now that like you put in your whatever working directory, you let, I know what is that, not Codium, Windsurf, I guess, Windsurf, or so any of those like VS Code plus LLM kind of plugins, right? Which are them C-line. Yeah, so there are many of them actually. Anyway, right? I guess Windsurf. I just got the name today. So if you let it just read this file, it will create most probably a working software, and it's prompted in a way that it will create probably the code that you would like. So maybe if I invest enough time, I mean, I can make it great in what I want. However, I still feel like maybe I just very behind the hype or behind this pace how it's developing. And I want to jump back to the original thingy. So here, the author, so she mentioned several things. Like, first of all, not working code. So basically, code you have is not working. I rarely see that recently. I mean, at least for Python,
You mean the code that was generated,
Yeah, yeah.
not written by you? Okay.
It goes, by the way, it's important. It goes about existing code base. It's not going about the new things. I guess it's really very different. So because I guess we both have like very, or not very, or established code bases, which yeah has to be secure and all that. So not working codes, yeah, that's bad, but we can easily control, right? The misdiagnosis of problems. This one is, by the way, that's something I kind of really understand. I fall into pit of sometimes, especially when it goes about technologies, as you mentioned, that I don't understand fully. Let's say Kubernetes development deployments. So I'm looking at this crash loop backoff, and then like, okay, what the hell happened? And then my tools are limited. I know like describe, I can log into the container, I can see logs, but everything above that is too far away from me. So, and I tend to copy paste the whole log and whole describe to ChatGPT whatsoever, like our own ChatGPTs, not the common ones. And I hope for the best, like that somehow magically this stuff can, from the context, understand what this thing is. Sometimes it surprisingly can, but most sometimes it doesn't. And I spend much more time waiting for the answer, or like copy pasting the logs, whatever, than really trying to get the why it really happened. And this tendency, I mean, that's kind of a lazy mind tendency in a way, but still, there is this hope that maybe it does the stuff faster than me, and then I'm just fine. So, but that's what, yeah.
You just reminded me about one old joke when one person wanted to be hired, and it was a secretary job. And the guy who hired a secretary asked how fast you can type on keyboard. And the person said like 10,000 words in a minute.
Yeah.
And the employer like, what? Really? That fast? Yeah, that's fast. They answered. But you know, it's so messy. You won't understand any single word from that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think it's as I said before. It for me it works the same way as any other tool. If you know how to use shovel, you can like go to the garden and use it, right? But if you don't know, you will try to do something odd. If you know how to write code for your application in like any language of preference, you can use helpers as well, because you will understand how far is that from like from the real world. But if you don't know how to use that, of course you can try and you will get some results. But for me, the for me the quality of those results will be very comparable to the quality of yourself trying to use shovel, like to put a nail in the wall, right? It's not a hammer, it's a different tool, but you still can do that.
Yeah.
And for me, it's very similar to that.
Yeah. I would actually like us to next time to continue with that, because I really like the schema that she put onto like failures of when we use GenAI assistants. I unfortunately, I guess we need to wrap it up, and there is another topic which I just want to mention. I haven't read the thing, but it's called MCP server for Ghidra, right? I guess. And I didn't know what is that, but MCP servers are on the hype. Interestingly, it's like a second wave of hype, because MCP was introduced like some months ago, and now everybody like caught in the hype. And Ghidra is a yeah.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
For the people, blank-minded people like myself, can you please explain what MCP server?
MCP is a model constant protocol. I don't like this analogy at all. So I kind of know what it does, I haven't written a single one myself yet. It's maybe I should try with Golang instead of Python.
That's one of these kind of the things that you have to write to put on your resume.
Maybe. Actually,
Or
maybe.
okay.
Maybe, baby, I need to write an MCP server. So MCP is the idea of MCP was introduced by Claude, by Anthropic, so the guys behind Claude model, and they actually did a very nice thing. So they introduced kind of a standard. So now it's becoming a standard of how you attach any kind of a data source to your LLM. So how we did it before MCP, and I mean, we still do that actually. So you most probably don't need MCP. I mean, maybe you need that, but you don't know that sometimes. So if you use LLMs, you want sometimes to be able to do something called function calling. So there is no profit probably, man. I mean, with these job labor markets.
Let me correct it a bit.
Okay. Exactly. Lost time. I like that actually. We need some kind of typesetter like for us, like so that can be easily read. So is the traditional way of how you do it traditional? I mean, the way is like 1 year old. So you have your LLM, and then you kind of can explicitly ask it to use certain tools, or you can ask it, or LLM decides on its own that there is like a tools like hammer, shovel, whatever to use, and then you say, hey, I need to put a tree in my garden, and then LLM can either think properly and then like, oh, there is a shovel with interface dig into the earth, right? And it tries to do that. Or you say, hey, LLM, please use /shovel to help me do entry. And that it tries to, so it tries to understand what shovel does and also what kind of parameters there are. You actually describe it. It's not that LLM immediately understands whatsoever. So you provide it, so they say, this is shovel function, this is the parameters, and sometimes you even describe what it does. So if LLM is free of choice of tools, like let's say, and this is actually a nice example, you say, I want to create a paycheck for my client and send email with this paycheck. Client name is, George, and the paycheck is for like $100. And then LLM, if it's clever enough and it's prompted properly, it should realize, okay, there is some kind of database of clients. I need to search in the database, find George, find the latest transaction, get information about the transaction, create a PDF out of that, and send that as an attachment to an email. Sounds like a actually business process, right? And if you have MCP, and MCP actually standardizes the way of how, say, SQLite can be used by LLM. So I'm pretty sure there is SQLite MCP, there is Postgres MCP, whatever. So when you type like, please do that, like George stuff, the George paycheck, then LLM will translate that stuff into the plan of actions with tools. And these tools are sharing the same kind of interface. So the way MCP is basically overarching concept around this LLM function calling, I would say. And it tries to be a REST for LLM. So how does LLM, for example, I just wrote myself MCP for Reaper DAW. So I want Reaper to cut out from minute 1 to minute 5. If there is an API for Reaper, then LLM should know how to use that. And I wouldn't have to do that if Reaper developers create this MCP server, for example, or I can maybe, but I would need to like dig into to Reaper code. And you can find very nice examples of how it can be done. So I like this very simple business process example. However, I still haven't found like, how can I really do that? And of course, whenever you use that stuff, there is like usually a mode of you approve each action of LLM. So it says, I want to send an email. This is like email body. Approve, you say approve, and then it does the stuff. And there is in one of those editors, like I guess Windsurf, there was a mode called Yellow, where you basically auto-approve everything it does. And you can give the access to file system. So if you say, please create...
Just make sure it's not your file system.
Yeah, I mean, you can restrict it nicely. So then it can, so if you say, hey, create me a project with backend and frontend, it then start creating files, folders, writing code and so on. So there is a potential. Is it different from function calling? Yes, because it's kind of trying to standardize it. Like we have get post in REST, that's a usual analogy I found, and MCP tries to invent something like that. So how we do REST for any third-party tools such that LLM understands what to do.
Sounds very interesting, but I think again maybe yeah, let me do the same. maybe this is just me, but I think the amount of work that will be required to explain in detail what we want this LLM to do will be comparable at the end of the day to the amount of work we will need to do to write our own implementation.
I have to disagree. So in many cases, yes. But think of you as not as a developer of the stuff, but say you have a secretary job and you have you need to prepare those like paychecks, whatever. I would assume that you usually have software for that already. So it's also like a bad example maybe, but I can imagine myself. So if, for example, today I needed to decode audio file using Whisper, cut a piece of that, I needed to cut a piece from audio file, transcribe it using Whisper, align so there were two speakers. I need to align speakers. Yeah, we know, we discussed that already, right? So I'm still on the way, actually. Whisper gets better and MacBook hardware helps me here. So, and then I needed to align each phrase so assign it to a speaker. And then I needed that to be shaped as a nice looking like PDF document. So yeah, I can do that. But if I could prompt LLM to do that, that would be so much better. So, and the LLM prompt
here is if. I'm not against that idea. I really like it, but I'm kind of skeptical that it will be ever capable of doing such thing precisely. Because if we wanted to be able to do that precisely, we need to explain our own expectations precisely too, which will require a huge amount of work. That's my understanding.
I have to disagree. I mean, I know what you mean. And from what I saw, so I haven't tried myself.
Second time today.
Yeah. We need a special screen for that. Disagreement. Context state. Red alert. Sorry. So from what examples I saw, the prompts are pretty short. So the LLMs are already clever enough to somehow understand hammer and shovel functions and what can be done and what not. And actually it was all surprising to me. So I guess it's only a matter of time of how long. So it will take time to understand where really this MCP stuff makes sense. And some interactive searches in databases is one of those. So how would I write SQL? I don't write SQL like last 10 years, you know that. So I will go to ChatGPT and say, please write me SQL, where is that? Then basically asking it, right? And now with MCP, I probably can say, hey, please find me all the transactions of George for last 2 months. And then this tool most probably will say, hey, you have multiple Georges in your database. Which one you want? And it shows me the ones. So am I happy with that? Yes, I will be really happy because I wouldn't like to write SQL queries and analyze the data.
I'm really sorry, but Do you have an idea of which American guy you just reminded me of?
No. Max Musk.
One guy. Well, we don't say names in this
Yeah, we
podcast,
just see
right?
surnames.
So he just posted the message on one of popular social media platforms that he
Owns.
apparently owns um, about having more than one unique identifier
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
some
Yeah.
government database, and that one comment under that post was like, someone really needs to know how SQL works,
Yeah.
and he answered like, I'm pretty sure we're modern enough that we don't use such an old school technology like SQL.
Okay.
Why I'm saying that? Why I'm saying that? We are going back again. It's my understanding, right? We are sharing ideas, thoughts. That if you know what you're expecting to see, then you can use that results.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how data is structured in the database, yes, your SQL code that LLM will generate for you probably will work. But can you be sure that it will work correctly? What does it mean for that select statement to work correctly? Completely different example that I've read, I think, earlier today. So guys tried to teach machine learning model how to play tennis game in a way that game never ends. So it runs forever. Do you know what results was that machine learning model
I would
suggested?
expect to just hold the ball, like one of the.
It put the game on pause.
Nice. Yeah.
Is it really what they wanted to see?
I mean, okay, there is a function of like scoring the actions, right?
So these kind of things means that every time it does something, we need to check.
Of course.
So we cannot rely on this, especially if we move to things like, I don't know, surgery or medical stuff. You have to check and check again and more. So I think it is not as, like, it's very great instrument. It's powerful tool. There are no doubts about it, but you need to know how to cook it.
True. And I'm afraid that we will eventually break the even in amount of users who don't even think of that this stuff exists, right? As you said, there will be like maybe another programming languages exist. I doubt, by the way, because I mean it's still statistical data, right? So, but it's another discussion. So I would say that, for example, if I want to create, sorry for that, WhatsApp bot that gives you horoscope predictions for tomorrow, it can be easily solved by this LM, Vibe, agentic, GenAI coding, and it will probably even work. And if a person will host it, and
sorry, when we are talking about astrological forecasting, I mean,
I know.
What does it mean that it works?
It runs, okay? It runs and give you some predictions.
Okay, perfect.
So what I want to say is that it's kind of a eligidorism, right, of us, auto developers, saying, hey, we need to ensure that stuff we write works. But maybe, and I'm pretty sure there are many things where we don't really need to know it and to be sure 100%. In surgery, I would like a surgeon to be more or less like effective in his job and know what he or she does. But there are multiple cases where I kind of just okay with what LM says to me. It's just enough. And I would say for many of those cases, such a thing works. And actually MCP stuff is maybe more leaned toward us as developers for now. I know. So what I want to say is that if you want, for example, to run another example, so we are, I know we are kind of fighting examples which are no way a proof of anything. But I imagine like, so there are these deep research assistants, right? And I want, for example, to do a very naive descriptive analysis of my data. So what I would do, I would prompt LLM to say, here is the data frame, please write me a short script or whatever. If I would have to like do this transcription exercise, I will ask LLM to please write me Linux commands. And it will be many pipes in there, and that's what it was effectively. However, if I have no idea about Linux commands, if I don't know how to do pandas, and I don't know, by the way, like I would ask it differently. I would say, hey, here is my SQL database. Can you please create some naive analysis of a data? And just because the fact that I don't know how to verify that, I will have a tendency to trust that. And there is a tendency, definitely. And I guess we are only like on our starting line to explore what kind of side effects it will have. So, yeah.
That was a great talk. And I think it can last forever, which is good for us, maybe not that good for the people who do not know how to stop stream on your YouTube.
And they just close the tab. I know.
Yeah, but they can ask LLM about how to do that, right? Maybe they will get the proper answer. It's like I'm sure this topic will pop up many times in this and many other podcasts, and there will not be single proper answer to that. There will be many different opinions, and it's great that we are able to watch what is happening, to use some of these tools in our day-to-day jobs, and see how it develops and what it gives us in the future.
Yeah, you're right. Just before we finish, I want us to, like, for someone who will ever watch that, we are starting this YouTube effort, so we're still exploring, and it's forked from other YouTube channels and from existing podcast, another one. So I want to finish with a simple thingy, maybe short, not today I learned, but this week I learned. Short one, really something that maybe hit you in good or bad way.
You're asking now.
Yeah.
What I've learned. Do you have something on your mind right now?
Yeah.
Okay, please go first because I need some time to remember.
Okay. For me, so what I learned, it's pretty technical. So I just got to know that there is the package in pip for Python called Kubernetes. So I once used a package called Docker in Python, and actually it allows you to basically access Docker API. And then I thought, okay, so if I'm not gonna like drive my Docker containers from Python, which is legit, we can, but I don't have a use case for that. I mean, I don't know how to use that. But today and yesterday, I basically had to dig into the Kubernetes package of Python, and the unknowns that were in front of me were crazy. So LLM helped me because I had no idea what to do, because the task was that I need to read a config map from another namespace. And to me, when I read that, okay, why do we have to even read config map from another namespace? What the hell? I didn't even know that a pod can read something from another workspace. I mean, to me, it was already like exploring. So it works. It works pretty nice and fast. And coming back to LAMP's topic, I'm like, okay, now I need to refactor code a lot. But it took me way less time to do it myself than ask LLM, because explaining that would take too much time. But yeah, now I know that stuff exists and how to use that thing. which is decently actually. So yeah, I'm quite happy that I learned that. Not sure if such a learning will help me in future, but yeah, the more we have our podcast, the more Kubernetes we have, unfortunately.
Yeah, please get used to that. My thing that I've learned this week wasn't related to job, but it was related to software development. I'm trying to build an app. I will probably release it to public at some point, but right now it's in active development. And I'm trying to prepare a PDF document. The app that I'm writing is in Swift plus Swift UI and some other default packages that macOS and Xcode provide. The interesting thing about PDF,
Wait, to create PDF or to process PDF?
create PDF, but I mean processing should be, well, reading PDF file should be easier than creating it, but processing not that easy as it can be.
Yeah, okay.
So the interesting thing about printing to PDF, the default coordinate system starts in the bottom right corner.
Bottom right?
Yes.
Whoa,
Yes.
okay. I didn't know that because even working with OCR for a long time, I mean, maybe that's OCR giving us a service by saying where we want to set the origin, or it sets it for us, but usually in TextRact, it's like lower left corner.
This is lower right corner. This is why if you are not transposing or transforming coordinates, you will have everything reflected like in a mirror.
Yeah.
This is where ChatGPT helped me, by the way, to make a translation. And another thing is that it goes like every time you print, you want to create or draw a text on your image, actually, you need to specify coordinates, and you have to keep these things somewhere in variables, like what you've printed before, what you've printed next, etc. So
You mean,
keep
yeah,
everything
sure.
consistent. And for me, the simplest way of doing things was to print everything in tables rather than plain text strings. So now in my app, I put everything on PDF as a table, but I can control whether I want to draw borders or not. And it helped me a lot because the whole piece, the whole line from the paper is what I'm tracking now. It's only like Y coordinate. I don't have to think about left and right and center stuff. It's just going from line by line, and the tables was the most easiest way how to implement that in the code. So this is what I've learned.
So is it like Swift trying to write PostScript kind of directly?
It draws images, and you can draw text.
But
You can draw
I'm
lines.
wondering, like, I guess there are libraries to kind of create images, draw them, and render text on top, and then put them into PDF.
To put it into PDF, you have to prepare an image and use PDF context. It's like your canvas. The PDF document is like your canvas, and you're putting everything that you're drawing on that canvas into the PDF document. So you
Okay.
can draw a text, you can draw a line, and in my case, I used mixture of text and lines to draw tables, but then I realized that I can reuse tables for any other regular text blocks without drawing the actual borders of those tables.
So
So
it's easier to operate with table object,
yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Because
Because
it's auto.
you have to keep in mind only one coordinate, like how much you've printed already from the paper, without thinking of where do you have to do that, because everything can be controlled by columns in your table.
Okay. What about LaTeX?
We will leave that to the next Data Small Talks podcast. Please stay tuned, and whoever will watch this left at least one single comment, and even if it's asking us for stop doing that, we won't follow your recommendation, but at least if it will help YouTube to promote our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I
like,
think
subscribe, and we'll put some links in the description.
that's it. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, as always, to talk to you.
Thank you. Smart Data Talks episode 1 done.
See you later.
Ciao.
Вообще огонь.
Слушай, прикольно.